Hey, what's up? This is Twisted. I did a lot of coverage over the class changes going into Mists of Pandaria, but that's not the only thing going into the next expansion that's going to be new and exciting. There's a lot of changes and a lot of stuff to look out for in the professions. So, without further ado, let's take a look at them. The new volatiles in Mists of Pandaria are called Spirit of Harmony. Now, Spirit of Harmony is different from volatiles or elementals, primals like in past because there's only one type. Like, there's not multiple types, so there's just only Spirit of Harmony, and it's bind on pickup. It can still be broken down into modes, but basically what this does is it bottlenecks all crafting professions into the rate at which you're picking these up, which is a random drop off of either mobs or gathering other nodes and stuff. So this means there's now an effective price ceiling for all crafting professions because these aren't transmutable. There's no guaranteed way to get them. They just random happen chance fall down when you're doing something else like daily questing or whatever. What this means is there's going to be a lot more people out in the world farming, so here are some other tools to look at when you're farming. For one, engineers can make these mist goggles. These things basically, there's these little clouds out in Pandaria, and they contain nodes, but you can't see them unless you have these in your inventory. Currently on beta, you don't need to actually equip them to use it, so you can send it between your characters whenever you go to farm. So I would get that just to ensure that you're getting those extra nodes. Keep in mind that the zones are now going to be shared with other servers, so there's going to be a lot more people out in the world farming these nodes. And then also these gloves increase the time it takes to gather to match that of like one of the racial talents that you get. So basically if you had like that 1.5 mining cast, like it drops it down to a half-second cast, this drops off of a rare elite in Pandaria, so try to farm that up early in the expansion and enchant it with Gatherer as well. Skinning is for the most part the same as it was in Kata. There's these little scraps you can collect. Leatherworkers can turn them into the next level, or if you're farming higher level mobs, you get the higher level leather. These little pristine scales that drop off of mobs, those you want to look for they can be off of turtles, but they're mostly off of reptiles in the new zone, so look for those if you're farming for them specifically. The rare hide does have a really low chance to drop, but it can actually be produced now by combining 50 of the normal leathers together, so it's not as profitable on the auction house as it used to be. When you do reach 600 skill, you'll get the next rank in Master of Anatomy, which you'll see here is like 0.8%. So it's a little bit of a buff compared to the last expansion's crit chance, but it's still a really low crit and should not be considered for serious min-maxing. Another thing for skinning in particular to watch out for is this new AoE looting is a great quality of life change. However, what it means is if you're farming big packs of things, people can swoop in and steal all of your stuff if you just AoE loot and then start skinning one by one. So it might be a more effective method of skinning in competitive zones to just kill one mob at a time, loot it, skin it, and just go that way instead of doing that AoE loot and run the risk of someone taking all of your hard work killed stuff. For Herbalism, the most common flower, the equivalent of Cinderbloom in this expansion, is these tea leaves. Rain poppies are found in the 85-86 level zone along rivers. The silkweeds are found along the middle levels, 86 to about 88 level rivers. Snow lilies are only found in the 89-90 zones, can lie in Townlong, and it's only found in snow. And the Fool's Cap is found mostly along rivers along the level 90 zone, so that's Dreadwaste, Townlong, and Veil Blossoms. Because volatile life is not the main ingredient in flasks or whatever anymore in Alchemy, there's a new rare flower introduced called Golden Lotus. Golden Lotus can be in any zone, and when it is picked, it does give this rare buff, and it acts like the treasure finding potion, so if you are out doing your thing, it encourages you to keep doing like questing while you're herbing instead of just straight herbing. These new rare flowers are really critical, and I expect to be really inflated come the beginning of the expansion, because not only are they used for the new flasks, but they're also used in all transmutes, so alchemists are now tied to this because it's their life force. So if you're going to be out there farming for profit, these are the ones that you want to try to go after, die hard no matter what. To stay in line with the other professions, Lifeblood matches that 480 secondary stat, but since it's on a cooldown and haste stacks multiplicatively, that means that this can actually, theoretically, given the right circumstances or whenever you need that burst, it might actually yield better DPS or be better for the group to get this instead of a primary stat static. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but just note that this is buffed up from the previous expansion to the point where it does actually become a compelling choice given the encounter, given the gear, like trinkets that you have, or gear given the encounter length or the circumstances of when something needs to be bursted. For mining, the most common ore is called ghost iron ore. 2 at a time makes 1 ghost iron bar. The mid-level ore in the higher, sort of middle to high zones is called kipperite, but here's the thing, it can't be smelted in any bars. It can be prospected though, and it is used for some blacksmithing engineering recipes, so keep mining it up. And then the rare vein is called trillium veins. They can actually come in either black or white. It's one or the other, and you can kind of tell where it is based on the color of the terrain or the little swirl on top of it. 2 of those each, so 4 total ore will make 1 trillium bar. To match the 480 of a secondary stat, you get a new rank of toughness at max level. Your item enhancements across the 3 crafting professions for the most part are the same. In leatherworking, note that the 2 DPS have been simplified to either agility crit or strength crit, and the tank one is still stamina and dodge. And for tailoring, note that the spell DPS has also been simplified to int crit to match the other primary crits that leatherworkers are bringing, and you can still make the int spirit for healers. Blacksmithing is the same. Do note that your relative value of the belt buckles you're making is going to go way up because they just cost a flat transmutable bar. And do note that the it's been changed from hit to expertise, but expertise is now hit rating, so it's the same as it was last expansion. On the road to level cap, the 3 crafting professions make 384 greens that have random enchants on them. A little further along, they make these new gears called Contender gear. They're blue quality, and it's the PvP starter kit, so they're eye level 450, level 90 required. At the max level, that's 600 max level crafting, you can make epics. They're always going to be your hands or your chest, and they're eye level 476, and you have to get them from reputations vendors. If you're a blacksmith, build your reputation with the Clackseed. They sell all your patterns. If you're a tailor or a leather worker, build your reputation with the Golden Lotus. They sell all your patterns. Eye level 496 epics have been data mined. They are also hands and chest. They require this additional material that we haven't seen drop or hasn't been in the beta yet, but you can pretty much safely assume that it's going to be the equivalent of whatever the rare essence is dropped for that raid tier in the raid, as well as the pattern drops there too as well. Now technically, all of these professions that aren't gathering are supposed to have 320 of a primary stat. Now leatherworking gets tricky because the enchant that you put on your wrist that's the that you're going to overwrite as a leatherworker is only 170 of a primary stat, and this is 500. That means you're getting 330 extra of a primary stat, which is 10 more than all the other professions as far as the static stat goes. It gets even trickier for tanks because here's the thing, you're supposed to be getting across the board that even 320 stat in a stamina booster. However, you know, most of the professions, except for enchanting, do have an exception and make it up to 450 stamina. Well, leatherworking, it overwrites the tank enchants, which would be mastery and dodge, so there is no such thing as like stamina for your wrists, which means you're gaining a full 750 stamina on your wrists for being a tank. So if stamina stacking becomes the thing to do, then definitely you're going to want to roll leatherworking as a min-maxer for tanking like cutting-edge heroic modes. Now for your tailoring cloak, in order to equal 320 of a primary stat, this would have to proc once per minute in terms of intellect. Then it would be equal to the other professions. However, it's a random proc, you can't control it. So if you goof it up, or if it procs at the wrong time, or if it doesn't proc once per minute, then you're losing value over a static stat. So it's still a gamble if you take tailoring for the DPS increase. The spirit increase is going to be phenomenal at the beginning of the expansion because of the fixed base mana pools. However, as time goes on, it will lose value as spirit becomes less of a concern and gear scales. If you're physical DPS, I would just recommend not taking tailoring at all. It's still inferior to all the other specs. And then if you're a tank, you should never take tailoring because there is no survivability for enchanting your cloak with an embroidery. The blacksmithing bonus is still socketing your bracers and your gloves. In order to match the 320 primary stat bonus for getting these two, you would have to use at least blue quality gems in both of these slots, which means at the end of the expansion when epic gems do come out, it's going to be a DPS gain to go blacksmithing again. And for tanks, blacksmithing is still a really solid choice because you have more control over whether you want to stack stamina or whether you want to stack secondary stats, like, mastery, dodge, parry, whatever. Although if you are on a budget, remember what happens at the beginning of every expansion, gem prices are going to be a little out of control, so you're probably going to be socketing green quality gems if you're on a budget, which means you are doing less than your other professions would be. And something to roll around in your head about these secondary gems. Do note that there was a change to all gems. The primary stats, like say a red gem will be 180 of a primary stat. A yellow gem of that with only like a secondary rating in it will be 320 of that stat. And if you get a mixed gem like an orange, it's going to be 80 of a primary stat and 160 of a secondary stat. So keep those in mind when you're min-maxing with blacksmithing. One more note about tailoring, because they took out all of the different volatiles, you're probably familiar with doing your cooldowns on all these different days and like maybe lining them all up once a week. Those are all gone now, so you can take 8 bolts of this normal cloth, use it once a day to make the special cloth, and the special cloth is the one that gets used for all the high-end recipes. If you want to bypass that though, and this is something new that they're trying to push, you can take 3 Spirit of Harmony and you can actually do an additional craft, which might be a good thing because the new bags that you're able to make are 28 slots, so they are the new best in slot. Not much has changed for alchemists. The new potions have scaled up appropriately with their new eye levels, and the same thing can be said about the elixirs. One thing I will note is that there's a new Guardian elixir that's in the group that gives dodge, so this paired with the Mastery elixir might be a pretty good combination for alchemist tanks. I don't know though. It depends on which tank you're playing because Mastery values are changing depending on which tank you are. Otherwise, you get the same 320 stat boost through a new Endless Flask, and you can also get the improved duration and buff from Mixology of a flask in a raid. There's a new Swiss Army kind of utility potion out there that gives a speed boost. You might have some uses in PvP, however this will still be blocked during arenas and rated battlegrounds. But I do predict that a little bit of world PvP is coming back, so it might not be a bad idea to keep a stack on you. And there's going to be a lot more farming in this next expansion, so something that's carrying over from last expansion is that Potion of Treasure Finding, or Luck is what it's called. That only works in the Pandaria continent, but that will give you extra stuff for killing things. If you're gold farming on your alchemist, your new transmutes, you have an unlimited method of making trillium bars, which is going to be really clutch. And then your new equivalent to true gold is this living steel. What's even better is you can actually bypass the once per day transmute of living steel, just like tailoring can, with some motes of harmony, or with some spirits of harmony. Inscription, the shoulder enchants are no longer reputation, scribes make them, so this is your new supposedly your new auction house moneymaker. There are a lot of new glyphs out there that you're going to have an easier access to learning with this new daily quest that you can do, so it's kind of going to be like Jewelcrafting for learning each of those glyphs. And I'll also say that they can actually make some really good weapons. I know that's kind of weird, not a blacksmith making weapons, but a scribe, but you can make these blue level weapons that can later be upgraded into epic level weapons, so that's also going to be a good moneymaker at the start. And as always, you can still make Dark Moon cards. A lot of these Dark Moon cards are incredibly powerful for a start of tier rating, so expect this to be, in my opinion, the top money-making profession at the start of Mists. Engineering got a few new toys. Not going to really go over them, but basically Tinkers are easier to apply to your gear, and the Tinker scaled up. It's still a stat bonus that you can put on your gloves that stacks with your normal enchant. Your new cool thing that you get to build is you make another robot called Blingtron. Blingtron gives a once per day daily that you can put out, like in a crowded city or whatever, and anyone outside your group, anyone can click on it and do that daily once per day. It's good to do that for even if you don't have an engineer, it's good to do that daily once per day on the tune that you care about, because the bag that you get sometimes can increase your profession skill. And there's also a few new toys that you can play around with, but none of them are critical for rating. Jewelcrafting also didn't change a whole lot, so I'm not going to go into it. You still have daily quests you can do to get the recipes. They adjusted the value of secondary stats. Secondary stats are now twice the value of your primary stat on a gem. This is to make it more interesting and compelling to choose secondary gem choices instead of just always flatly doing primary gems. So this is this is the best change that they could have come out with this profession, because it now means there is a whole plethora of gems in demand. Another change that I noticed is if you craft the green level perfect gems and you get lucky and it procs, it's the same equivalent as the blue level gems. So it's not all, and with the change to transmute now being tied to a rare flower, this means that it might be more profitable to just craft up some green gems and hope it procs instead of just purely trying to craft them all and transmute them into blue quality gems. And your profession bonus for your primary stat is still handled by the gems, which can be secondary effects, which are now improved. So tanks might be looking to roll Jewelcrafting to get the extra to get that extra mastery or dodge or parry value. If you're looking to craft up some mounts, they're going to come from jewel crafters and engineers if you want those big purchase transactions. Now I'm going to cut the video here. I know this isn't the best that I've done because it's just really boring, it's long, and there's not a whole lot happening. I was going to scrap this entire project, but I decided there is some useful information being presented, so I decided to put it up anyway. But what I'm going to do in the future for the professions is I'm going to make one video per profession, and I'm going to cover everything about the profession instead of just the missed changes, so look to that in the future. If you'd like this vid or others on my site, you can help support me by liking, favoriting, subscribing, and even commenting. I'll try to respond best I can. And thanks for all the support, guys. I really do appreciate it.